If you want to experience more consistent peace in parenthood, I'm talking about where you go weeks and months without hitting your child, screaming at your child, weeks and months of the home feeling like a safe space, no arguing, no screaming with your toddler, teen, or child, then come on a journey with me real briefly. Let's go back to when we were born, when we came out of our parents' wombs. Who were you? When you were born, before you were given a name, before you were given a title, a degree, before you had a career title, before you knew how to even speak, before you even knew the language that you ended up learning, whether that was Chinese, American, wherever you're from watching this video, whatever the language was that you grew up learning as a child, before you learned that language, who were you? You didn't need to prove your worth. You didn't need to prove that you were good enough. You didn't even believe that you weren't good enough. You didn't seek anyone's validation. You didn't care about what anyone else thought about you. You didn't have a pattern of constant complaining and whining about life. You definitely weren't speaking negatively to yourself. Damn, you know what I'm saying? You were not saying a single negative thing about yourself to yourself. No negative thoughts about yourself or others. Who were you before you learned the English language? That's what you are now, still, to this day. You are not your title. You might have 7 degrees. That's not who you are. Those are experiences and things that have been experienced in this lifetime. But your degrees, your titles, your names, those were given to you, conditioned, programmed. Those were slapped on top of what you are. All of the human language, all of that slapped on top of what you are. And this is good news for anybody who's trying to break cycles, because it means that everything that you do that you regret, that you feel shame and guilt about, the hitting your kids, beating your kids, screaming all the time, the arguing all the time, judging yourself, being mean to yourself, all the negative self-talk about yourself, it's all false. F-A-L-S-E. It was all learned after you. Learned after you. Okay? You are. Everything else was learned and is dependent on who raised you, what you learned, your environment, all that stuff. But it's F-A-L-S-E. Okay? This means that you are free. Okay? You are free to call out the patterns and habits that you were programmed and conditioned with. To tell yourself, I no longer subscribe to this, I no longer subscribe to that. Oh, beating my child, it's not even about becoming a better parent. I just no longer subscribe to it. I would have never really raised my hand and said, I want to do that anyways. There are tons of other ways to communicate with my child, and I'm going to try those options. Not because I have to, but because that's what I'm choosing to do. Because I was programmed and conditioned to do a whole bunch of stuff. I learned it from family, peers, school. I learned it from the environment I grew up in. But that doesn't mean that that's what I have to continue to subscribe to. That is freedom, and you are free. Who were you before you were programmed and conditioned to believe that you have to hit children, scream at them, beat them, before you were programmed to believe that it's normal to talk mean to yourself, negative self-talk, to worry about money, to stress all day, every day about money, instead of having faith that you're going to continue to be taken care of the way you have been since the day you came out of your mother's womb? Who were you before you were taught to live in fear instead of live in faith, to be that pessimism is realistic instead of giving yourself permission to choose optimism, acceptance, and faith? Okay? If you want to go from living paycheck to paycheck and spanking your kids all the time, screaming all the time, power struggles all the time, if you're shifting from that to operating and creating your life and relationships from a regulated nervous system, from peace, from acceptance, from unconditional love, with the intention to have an authentically rich and deeply connected relationship with yourself and your child, then ask yourself, who was I before I was given my name, titles, degrees, etc.? Who am I underneath all of the programming and conditioning of believing that I have to hit, scream, yell, and flip out and all this other stuff? Who am I underneath the programming that came after birth in this lifetime? You deserve to get to know yourself. Not just the self, lowercase s, that you were programmed and conditioned to be, but your true self, capital S. Get to know yourself.